So in the military, we've got offenses that don't exist in the civilian world. And one of those is cruelty and maltreatment under Article 93 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. What are some of the components of cruelty and maltreatment?
So including abuse of your subordinates. And so not treating people with dignity and respect the way that they should be, but taking it to a next level.
Right. So the Uniform Code of Military Justice talks about a couple things, right? First, they have to be a subordinate, because if you're just an ass to somebody who's not your subordinate, that's a different offense, right? But if you're your subordinate, you have a particular relationship with that individual and heightened responsibilities. That's why there's this provision in the code. And in addition, it has to be conduct that amounts to maltreatment or cruelty. And there's a definition in the Uniform Code of Military Justice that talks about what that specifically is. But it's an objective standard, right? You view whatever that misconduct is from what a reasonable person on the outside would view that misconduct. Is that objectively considered cruelty or maltreatment? It's not what the subordinate thinks, right? The subordinate could think that you calling me a Texan is cruel because I'm from Oklahoma and I would never, ever say I was a Texan, right? But from an objective standard, everyone knows Texas is much better than Oklahoma, right?
Some might say that.
Right. So that's what's really important, is that when you're assessing cruelty and maltreatment, that is done from an objective perspective. I've seen in my practice that a lot of other types of misconduct that don't necessarily rise to the level of the offense, they usually loop into cruelty and maltreatment. For instance, a sexual assault of somebody who is your subordinate, that maybe there's a consent issue, they'll charge under 93 instead of under 120, because then they eliminate that whole consent issue, right? It's now cruelty and maltreatment. And cruelty and maltreatment can be punishable for up to 3 years, right? It's not a minor offense. And so that's one of the things that I've seen in the charging. Now, when you were a Chief of Justice, did you see an increased use of charging Article 93?
I did not. We rarely charge that, but if we did, then it was kind of a unique situation, not encapsulated elsewhere. Or if there's a charging issue, like you said, with one charge, then using it to then cover as a
right.
reason.
So like toxic leadership could be considered cruelty and maltreatment. You know, an inappropriate relationship could be considered cruelty and maltreatment, right? Because again, what would an objective individual think of that type of behavior towards a subordinate? And the key there is that they're a subordinate, right? You have to be directly in control of that individual, not necessarily a captain and from another unit, a staff sergeant. That would not be cruelty and maltreatment, right? What do you think some of the biggest concerns for our soldiers with respect to cruelty and maltreatment would be?
Well, it'd be related to the toxicity in the unit, or seeing if, is it just that one subordinate, or is there, a uniform issue within this unit as a whole, or making sure that it's addressed, because if you have that cruelty and subordinate to one, it's going to infiltrate through the whole unit and cause additional issues.
That could get into 134 or 133 offenses, right? Because, it could be an act that may be just any act. It doesn't have to have an intent element. It doesn't have to have, a wrongfulness element, but some type of conduct, and that conduct is prejudicial to good order and discipline or service discrediting, right? There's not an intent that it'd be bad or that the conduct be inappropriate, but if it has this effect, it's now a 134. And so, these offenses of doing something that has a negative effect on a subordinate or a negative effect on the unit are things that you really have to consider as a leader. And that's regardless of whether you're, a section sergeant or a platoon sergeant or a first sergeant or a platoon leader or a commander, right? That's going to affect how leadership happens in that particular unit. So if you're facing leadership issues, whether it's cruelty and maltreatment, or whether it's a 134 or 133 offense, give us a call. We're the Law Office of Will M. Helixon. We are your warrior advocates. You defend the nation, we defend you.